Okay, I'm back. This is Rob Fleming. I'm going to do a short case study on a project called Belfield Homes, and this is courtesy of Tim McDonald and Onion Flats. Tim, thank you so much for letting us use your project to better understand how Passivhaus comes into practice. And just for my audience here, this is not my project. I know the project. I know Tim. I'll do my best to present it, and I will try to get some more case studies for you as we go along. This project is in the Germantown section of Philadelphia near LaSalle, and as you can see, it's got some really nice awards already, and it has some nice features if you look at it. So let's get into this a little bit and see what we can do. It says the first certified passive house in Pennsylvania. Anybody who's gone through this process would know it's quite an accomplishment. Now Tim sets up his lecture starting with the experience. What does it feel like to be in the house? So like architects, we tend to like to think about what's the space like, what are the colors, textures, etc. And so here we see a pretty happy family. And I think that part of Tim's point is that although it's a passive house and it's super high performance, it doesn't mean it has to be boring or poorly designed. So there you see dad or somebody coming home from work. Now, a couple things about this project that are kind of interesting. Number one, this is a building that was built in this factory out here in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. So part of the theory of this project is that you want to do in a passive house a really tightly defined built envelope. If you all remember my lecture from back in earlier in the course. And one of the theories is if you build in a factory, your quality control is very high. So that's the factory, and what they do is they build these boxes in the factory and bring them out to site and put them out on a crane. Oh no, they build the boxes in the factory. Here we go. And those boxes eventually come out to site and get put in by crane, and we end up having houses that have a really, really, really tight envelope. So there's your factory build, and there's your site, and then what you have here is a really remarkably well-established wall section that took many years for the Onion Flats people to develop. And some of the things that you're going to want to see here, let's just do the numbers first. R52 roof, R33 wall, floor 58, windows, it's a 0.11 U value, which is very high, and a great solar heat gain coefficient of 0.63. I'll be covering a lot of these concepts in a couple weeks in the green construction module. So if you don't understand what some of these terms mean, don't worry about that at this point. Now, if you look at the way the wall section is set up, you've got a lot of very, probably about 8 inches of foam here. And foam, as we know, has great R value, or great, in this case, U value to make sure, R value to make sure that the wall is resisting that. And then these really, really high performance passive house windows. Of course, all of this in here is critical in terms of quality of construction. You can have the best windows and the best wall, and if there are openings or gaps, you're going to have a very difficult time. The other probably really important aspect of passive house is exterior or exhalation, where you're putting more rigid insulation on the outside of the building. So what's happening is there's no way for air to move through this insulation. There is a way, but the air will try to move through this exhalation and through that stud, and it's very protected. In typical construction, you only have brick or whatever here, and temperature is moving through that stud. So this is dealing with thermal bridging in a very fine way. And then we have a rain screen, which is, we saw in the pictures, a very nice gray material, and then another very nice green material here to give it some really wonderful aesthetics. I will try to get blow-ups of these details, can't make any promises, and post them up into the course if possible. Now, the other thing we talked about in Passive House, and I really should tie these to the 5 principles, is tight construction. So the standard is 0.6 air changes per hour, and they were able to reach 0.405 air changes per hour, which is almost 30% better than what we would normally want to see for that. And we do that through a blower door test, so the entire house is pressurized, and then we can determine the amount of air changes or leakages that are going on in the house, which is pretty amazingly quality construction. And I showed you this slide before, the thermal insulation, and I think what would be really cool is to see a roof image. Somebody's going to have to get up in a helicopter or a drone and take a view down to see these roofs and to see, I bet you the roof is dark blue here and bright yellow on this building. So these are the existing buildings in Germantown. These are the buildings from Tim's Onion Flats, and you see the difference in quality in terms of the amount of air escaping, amount of temperature, sorry, I should be much more careful here, the amount of temperature escaping or coming out of the building. It's pretty powerful. I believe the goal here was also to get to net zero energy. And so once you've done all these great passive house strategies, you're now also looking at really a very small amount of solar to get to net zero. I don't know exactly if these reach net zero, but I will report back to you as soon as I can to let you know that. I'm going to post up a couple other case studies into the edX platform, but for now, this is the end of this short little case